All right, good night, guys, and welcome to my little space. Tonight I'll be mixing a project from a good friend of mine. His name is Keon Cupid, a very avid band player in Trinidad and South Trinidad. Producer himself. He produced this track himself, and I've known him for quite a long time. He's a very excellent musician, and this is one of his latest works. He wanted me to touch the mix on it for him. So uh, I decided I'd share the process with you guys and let you guys see, well, my process, my mix process. Okay, so here we go. One of the first things, and to a lot of the process is how do I put this? Mixing is a very detailed oriented process, and a lot of the early processes may seem tedious, but they're very important. You must pay attention to detail in the earlies of your mix process. If not, it could cause difficulties later on. So you'd notice that I'd be putting a lot of emphasis on things like labeling and coloring and uh, even doing gain gain processes on the actual waves even before I move off fader. These things are very important. So let's get down to it. The first thing I'm gonna do is create a session for this song. So let me share my screen so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So um, so disregard this first audio track. This really is just a track I use for routing so that you guys could hear my voice. I have this mic plugged into that track one, and so when I speak, you can see that level. It's on input, and it just lets the signal go through to you so you can hear what I'm doing. I'm saying, sorry. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna the first thing you do, you create a session, and this is something you want to do even before you import files, even before you do anything. You wanna create a new session for your mix. You want to give it a name, and you want to put it in a unique location where all its resources are going to be housed together. So let's see. Send my downloads. And the song is called New Perspective. So in my template here, well, my template is literally an empty template. I like to work from scratch every time. Some guys like to have mixed templates with plugins and stuff already in there labeled, but my work comes by so varied that every session is different. So I just start with a blank slate. So my the song name is called New Perspective. So I'm going to go up under File here, say Save As. I'm using Save As rather than Save because I don't want to overwrite my blank template. I want to create a new file. So Save As, and that brings us to this window. Has a few options. The top part of this window, though, you Mac users would know that it directs you where are you going to save this file. I'm going to save it. Let's see, on that hard drive, and I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call it the artist name. I have my project sorted by artist name, so I'm going to call it, this is Keon Cupid out of Trinidad. I'm going to call this folder Keon. Okay, and now in that folder, I'm going to create a new session called New Perspective. New Perspective is the name of the song. So New Perspective. Now, before I hit save on this, there are a few things of note right here. There are a couple ways to save resources in Logic. One is as a folder. What that means is Logic will create a new folder, and all the resources that belong to that song will be loose resources within that folder, resources that you can open that folder and look at. The other way is a package, and a package is almost like it's like a zip file. So it's a single icon on your drive. All the resources still go in there, but you don't really have access to each individual wave file on the inside of that package. It saves all the mix data, all the MIDI data, all the audio data into this one unit called a package. I don't really use it because I like to have at file level access to all the resources. So I save as a folder. A cool shortcut that lots of folks don't know is if you click on the name of the header of your Logic session, where the name is, you see it says new perspective tracks up there. If you command click that, it literally shows you a file hierarchy, the path to where this where this session is. So if I hold command and click there, see it shows me that that's in this folder, which is in this folder, which is on this drive, which is on this computer. So right now I'm going to go to this folder. That's the folder that the song is in. Brings up a new window for me. And in this folder, I'm going to bring all the files that I've downloaded. So in my downloads folder, there's a folder here called stems. I got this off of WeTransfer. I'm just gonna drag it into this folder. So right now the Mac is copying these files off its internal SSD onto this external drive that I'm going to be mixing from. Right now I'm going to be mixing from an external drive. A couple of reasons for that. I like mixing from an external drive because it frees the internal drive up for the application lives on the internal drive. So when I say that, Logic itself lives on the internal drive. So Logic can do all its seek functions for retrieving attributes of its own software from the internal drive without losing bandwidth for seeking files and related with the audio of the song. So that's the reason why I always mix from a very fast external drive. So here we go. So this is a folder called stems. I'm just looking to see how the files are named. I can see some names. Let's open this window out. Okay, so they're just labeled with the resource names. That there's no tempo. I'll have to figure the tempo out. That's okay. So I'm gonna grab this folder. Logic allows you to just grab the entire folder, and I'm gonna move it to probably measure 4. I like to leave some free space before the file starts. It helps me. It helps with pre-roll and a couple other things. When you do that, it brings this dialog box up. Use existing tracks? No, I want to create new tracks. I'm going to say okay. All right. Okay, so it's showing me 20 odd tracks here. 2 to 20, so that's 19. Let's make sure it's 19. So I can come here and you see it says 19 items. So that way I'm sure I got every single track. So off the bat, I can see that some of these things are panned hard. I can see like this thing called Africa is panned to the left. Base is usually a mono thing. I can see it's a stereo file here, but it looks like it's in the center, so that should be fine. Some of the things here look like the gain is low. I can see that the crash track, this track here, I can barely see the waveform, so it tells me that the gain is a bit low. I can see another track here called hats. That tells me that the gain is a bit low as well. I can barely see a wave on it. So things like those are the things I'll deal with at this stage. So Logic has this cool function where I can select all the files. And I could say normalize region gain. What this does is it's not like a regular normalize. It's actually, let me see, you guys may have some all right. I can see a couple of you guys watching online. That's great. Okay, so yeah, if you have questions, you feel free to pop them in the chat and I'll try to answer them. Okay, so here we go. So yeah, I was talking about this normalize region gain function. Now this is not like your regular normalize. It can work like your regular normalize if you wanted to, but there's some cool things that this does. The first thing to note is there are a couple ways it can function. It can either affect the entire selection as one thing and just look for the loudest thing of the entire selection and then adjust gain proportionately to everything in the selection. Or I could say individual regions, which is what I like to do. I like to make every region individually affected, right? Regular normalize also works as on a peak basis. So how old normalize works, normalize would look at the peak of every wave and based on how close it is to maximum, being 0 dB digital, it would raise the loudest peak to 0 to maximum and then proportionately raise everything else by that amount, so everything remains relatively the same volume. Well, when I say relatively, I mean the volume increase would be relative. So if it raised the peak by 4 dB, it would raise the quietest bit by 4 dB. So the relative dynamics would be maintained. So that's how it works. That's how the peak algorithm works. But I don't use the peak algorithm for this. I use the loudness algorithm. And loudness is a little different from peak. Loudness is how do I explain? It refers to it's a psychoacoustic thing. It's how the volume of a particular wave is perceived rather than its actual digital number. So something that is something that has a very high peak but very short duration can be perceived as though it's not as loud as something with a lower peak but a longer duration, right? So this loudness algorithm takes that into account, and I like to use that minus 23 dB. Apply that to every region. Takes a little while, it's a little processor intensive because it's actually scanning the audio from top to bottom of the song of every single region and raising or lowering them so that they all are perceived at minus 23 dB LUFS. Okay, so that looks a little better. Now I can see the waveforms of everything. I can see that there's audio on everything now. Notice I haven't done anything with the faders as yet. Let's I'm gonna grab all the playback faders and pull them down to, let me show you. Pull them all down to 0 or infinity, which is silence. All right. So my next step, by the way, I'm gonna try to do this mix using mainly stock plugins, and so that those of you who following along can find these same plugins in your version of Logic. I may once or twice use some things proprietary, but I'll try as much as possible to stay Logic native so that it doesn't look too strange. Okay, and this goes to show that if you know what you're doing, you can get a fantastic mix from just native plugins. I know all those manufacturers out there want you to buy these expensive third-party add-ons for your DAWs, and a lot of them are great. I personally have a lot of them too, but a lot of them are how do I put it? Not absolutely necessary. They may get you to your ending point a little quicker than something else, and that's why I use these certain ones that I use. But literally all you need is a good EQ, a good compressor, some form of good saturation, reverb, good delay. That for traditional music, that's literally all you need. Okay, so here we go. So at this point, I've dealt with the gain of every file, but my session is not at the tempo of the song. So I'm gonna look for something. I'm gonna look for something rhythmic, and I'm gonna turn that on. That'll be the only thing on. I'm gonna play that. Nice. So this sample is pretty cool. What's good about it is it has a very steady pulse. Now Logic has this cool plugin called, it's in the metering category, and it's called BPM Counter. I'm gonna put that plugin on this track and just let it run. And immediately this plugin tells me that this audio that it's hearing is at 105 BPM. So I can stop now and go to Logic's master tempo and tell Logic that this song is in 105. It's at 105. 105. So now, next step would be to turn the metronome on and to make sure that all the files start at a proper downbeat. So let's go. Now all these files, it's important to note that they all should have the same start point. If they all have the same start point, then you move them all together. So I'm going to say Command A. That's Command on your keyboard, and the letter A, that selects all. And I'm going to move the very first. I can see the very first transient there. Let's hear what it sounds like. Let's hear what beat it is. Right, so it sounds like a 1 beat. So I'm gonna move everything so that that very first transient lands on measure 5. Measure 5, so that's the 1 beat of measure 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, that's how I interpret it so far. I could be wrong, and eventually if I'm wrong, I will change it, but so far this is what it says to me. It's important to make sure that this metronome stays in sync with your audio file all the way through the song. There are a number of reasons for that. Logic does tempo-based delays and things. It'll make your delay sync in and all this stuff a lot easier if your session is at the tempo of your audio. So I'm going to fast forward down to measure 97 here. And it's still in sync. Going to go all the way to measure 161 here. And it's still in sync. So that 150 BPM is correct. I'm good with that. I'm going to turn that plugin off now. I don't need it anymore. No plugin. Good stuff. Okay. So now my session is in sync. Now my session is in sync. Hey Kiana, I seen you there. Good vibes. Yeah, just started mixing your stuff. All right, here we go. My session is in sync with the metronome. I'm gonna start labeling and putting things together. So let's look for, this is I usually start with the kick drum. I'm gonna move that kick drum all the way to the top. I'm gonna keep all the drum things together. I can see the labeling here. Get a snare. This is snare. Toms. Percussion. Hats. Congas. Crash. I'm going to move all these things up. All right. I'm going to move the snare rim next to the kick. I'm going to go kick, snare, hi-hats. I'll get the toms. Crash, congas, percussion, Africa. That looks good. Everything else looks like chordal stuff. All right, so let's deal with the percussive stuff first. All right. So from the kick all the way to the crash, these are the drum-based things, right? I'm going to separate them. Drums as one thing, percussion as one thing. What do I mean by that? Right, the next step for me is usually making submixes, right? And a submix is literally an auxiliary destination for similar groups of sounds. Okay, so my first submix here is gonna be, well, let's select all. Let's Right, so let's the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna color these drums. Remember guys, you can ask questions as you go along. If you I can see the comments, so if you have any questions about what I'm doing, feel free to pop a question in the comments and I'll get to it. Okay, so right, here we go. So let's give our drums a unique color. I'll give these drums a nice bright orange, and I'll say track, create track stack. What a track stack does is it literally creates a summed destination for this group of instruments. So I'm going to create a summing stack. Folder stacks are different in that folder stacks don't create an auxiliary destination. They just put all this stuff in a folder. It's good for organization and neatening stuff, but it does nothing for the signal flow. Summing stacks, however, route the outputs of all these tracks into a summed bus, summed auxiliary location. So let's create a summing stack and let's name this sum stack drums. All right, so I can fold that up. I know everything in there is drums. So now I'm gonna go on to the next group of things. This is congas and percussion, PRC percussion. And I know these two things, maybe even the Africa, because that's an interesting one because it's a mixture of percussive things and harmonic things. I like to separate percussive atonal things like congas from things that actually carry chordal information. So I won't put that Africa sample into the percussion. I'll leave it as a harmonic thing, even though it's very percussive. It does carry some chordal information. So the only things going into this percussion stack would be, I'm gonna give these two a unique color so that they do not orange like the drums. I'm gonna give them that color and I'm gonna give them their own stack. So track, create stack. Notice I haven't even hit play yet. All this, well, I haven't even listened to a lot of this material yet. I only hit play to get the tempo. All this organization stuff will help you down the line in making your mix nice and thick and stand out, right? By making sure they're labeled and grouped in the right way. So let's create a summing stack there, and this summing stack will be called percussion. All right. From there, I'll have the bass next. This won't go in a stack, it'll be standalone. It's usually its own mono thing, and I'll give this its own color. All right, we'll move on from there. I'll put I'll put all the chordal things next. So keys. I'll put all the very rhythmic things close together. So like that Africa, these, let's hear what these keys are. Okay, I hear that. It's very rhythmic. A thing I heard on those keys is the voicing feels a bit low. I'll talk about that a little as we move further on. Um, okay, so here we go. So this. So brass. You know what? I'll leave the sorting of these for now. Let's get into mixing those. Well, leveling those drums. Uh, so let's mute, mute, mute. Let's open the drum stack. Now let's. So the first thing I'm gonna do on the drum auxiliary, I'm gonna just move that fader down to -5, just so that I have some headroom. Drum element, that's the auxiliary destination, that's the bus destination where all the drums go to. Right, that was moved down to -5 dB. And let's start turning on our kick. I'm just gonna cycle a section. I don't need the metronome anymore. I can turn that off and I'll turn the kick on. Now, I don't usually mix in headphones, so I'm gonna take these headphones off for a minute. I'm gonna turn the speakers on. To do that though, I'm gonna turn the microphone off so that there's no feedback. Okay, so what I hear there's a lot of high frequency. There's a lot of beta in that kick, which is not a bad thing, but I wish there were a lot more weight. So I'm gonna start shaping that kick to get the sound that I like. So I'm gonna cut a lot of the low frequency energy that I'm not going to need. So I'm not gonna use anything below 33 hertz. So I'm gonna cut that literally right out. But somewhere right around 670, 75 hertz, I'm gonna give that a boost. And I'm just gonna back down the whole top. back down some of the stuff here as well. Nice. Sorry about that. I forgot to mute the microphone. I see your question there, Kian. You're asking what's my view on using a reference track. And I'd say a reference track is very important. I almost always use a reference track, but not too early on in the mix process. I don't want to be influenced prematurely. I want to let the song take me where it wants to take me. Um, and after I kind of have things in the ballpark of my tastes, then I'd compare an overall overview of my tastes against something that I trust. So I won't be referencing, like at this stage where the kick is the first thing I've turned on. I won't be referencing another song to hear their kick right at the start of a mix. I think the elements of a mix should work together well amongst themselves before you can judge them against anything else. You know, uh, you see, another song's kick will be very different because it has to interact with different unique elements that fit that other song. Right? This kick has to work well in this song. So at such an early stage, I won't go into now. If you're a beginner at mixing, I won't discourage even referencing at the beginning. But I've been doing this for so long that I have certain tastes. I know where I want certain things to be. DB wise and sonically, I know where I want certain things to be. So for me, I would reference later on. I hope that answers your question. If not, just pop it there and I'll see what I can do. Gonna add snare now. I kind of like the way that um, kick drum sounds so far. Okay, so there are a couple different snare sounds on the snare track, and each one would warrant a slightly different treatment. So my next step, if I encounter something like this, would be to separate those snare sounds myself as best as I can. And for that, I'll just create another snare track. I'll call, and just begin going through the track and cutting and separating things. Okay, I hope you guys were following what I was doing there. I was literally just separating the two snare sounds from the same track. That way I could treat them differently. I can EQ one separately. I could do different things to different ones. So now I've ended up with two snare tracks. This one has that rim kind of sound. This one has that full snare kind of sound. So let's deal with the full snare sound first. Sorry about that. I keep Okay, Keon. So I'm listening to your snare here, and one of the things you're suffering from is your snare sounds exactly the same every time you hit it, and that takes away from the illusion we're trying to create. We're trying to make the illusion that this is a real drummer playing a real snare. And when a real drummer hits a real snare, it never sounds the exact same every time. So when I program drums, I literally try to incorporate a couple things. I incorporate velocity levels. So I intentionally play some snares louder than the other. I sometimes even modify the sample and spread it across a couple different pads, right? So I may modify that snare sound, make one a little brighter, make one a little duller, do different things, and play that snare across three different pads so that every time I program it, I'll choose. Or you can, there's a thing called a round robin you can program into if you have like battery 4 or whatever whatever you're using for drums, you can set up a sequence of samples that the sampler will go through. It's called a round robin, and that will choose a different sample every time you hit that same pad. Right, all these techniques help make the snare sound different or slightly different. It gives that illusion of liveness. Okay. For now, though, I'm just going to brighten this snare a little bit. It sounds just a little cloudy, so I'm just gonna brighten it a hair. Yeah, there's also a little ringing resonant frequency. I'll emphasize it so you can hear what it sounds like, and then I'll cut a lot of it so you can hear the benefit you get from removing that. Yeah, Kadeem, I use battery 4 when I program drums. That's one of my favorite go-tos for drum programming. Has a lot of cool features, and round robin is one of those. Has some cool articulations too that little difficult for a keyboard player to do with his hands. So like flams and press rolls and so articulations that you're gonna apply to samples, and those things make your drum programming sound a lot realer. In one of my broadcasts coming up, I'll probably demonstrate battery 4 and how I use it to make drums sound live. Yeah, I'm finding I still have a little bit of that tail on the snare that's singing and whistling that note. That note. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try an envelope shaper to squeeze in the back end of that note. Let's see what we get. Yeah, so you see when I bypass the enveloper, it's a very slow snare and it kind of, I think I may have overdone it here, but you can feel what the enveloper does. It's better to have shorter snares in faster music. Right? Slower music can do with longer snares. Now remember, it may sound very short now, but as we add space, as we add reverbs and so, it'll get a new tail, right? So I'm not too worried about it feeling so staccato right now. Okay, now I'm gonna add the hi-hats. Ah boy, Kim. Seems like I didn't get the hi-hats. I just get silence. Yeah, so Keon, send me those hi-hats by themselves if you can, as quickly as you can. If hopefully you're near your computer, right? Because the hi-hats here are silent. I'm gonna move on to something else. Nice, that sounds like a floor tom. Just gonna cycle an area that the floor tom plays. So for something like this floor tom that doesn't play too often, I'll go and I'll go and do a remove silence. Where is it? All right. I'll give it a pre-attack, which is like a look ahead. And I'll also give it a post release. So some time for the entire tail to ring. And I'll choose that. And I'll do that on the entire track. Functions. It remembers the settings, so I just have to zap it. So there you go. I like those toms. I think I just want to add some more weight. So let's let's cut all the top in here. Don't need all this 4K information. I also don't need anything down at 30 hertz. That just takes up a lot of energy without giving us any sonic value. And somewhere around 100, 150 I'll boost. Move the floor tom off to the side. Now if you notice, I'm not using regular pan. I'm using stereo pan because it's a stereo file, right? When you have stereo files, your pan knob literally becomes a balance knob, which is not what you want. At some point I'll get into the difference between pan and balance, but for right now, note that anytime you have a stereo file, you want to get stereo pan. Okay, let's open the other tom track. Yeah, that sounds pretty good just like that. So I'm gonna remove some silence from this track as well. Control. And the functions there, you're gonna where is it? Remove silence. I'm gonna just bring my threshold. Yeah, that looks fair. And my pre-roll looks good. And my post-roll looks good. I'm gonna say okay with that. And I'm gonna do that to everything. Control. Actually, no, where am I? It's under functions. Remove silence. Go. Okay, let's open these crashes. Again, I'm gonna give this a stereo pan control. Now on the entire drum bus, I'm gonna add some compression and some saturation. Dynamic, compressor, stereo, and right in the compressor, right in Logic's main compressor, there's this little hidden gem. It's a saturator that I really like. Make sure the limiter is on as well. There's a limiter in here. I don't want it to go above 9 dB. Sorry, I don't want it to go above -3 dB as well. Ratio. Right, all of a sudden that kick got very aggressive. You could feel that, right? Yep. You look at my Alright, you can hear the difference, just some EQ and compression mix. Just some EQ and compression. Alright. EQ, compression, and saturation, those three things. Yeah, so these crashes, I wish the samples were a little more weighty. I wish they had a little more low frequency. For now, I'll just push the volume ahead though. Okay, so let's close up this drum bus and let's open the percussion bus and start to add some percussion. Now I'm also gonna make this percussion bus minus 5 dB. I like those congas, but they're a little dull for me. So I'm just gonna add a little edge on them. Oh. I may have to cut that ride out of the regular cymbal track and just drop its level a little bit. But we'll get there. So this is my conga EQ. Again, I'm just gonna cut all the low frequencies that I don't need. Trying to grab a little frequency up here that is. Okay, if I bypass, you could hear what I did. Just for the top side of it to grab a little more. Gonna move it off to one side even some more. Let's hear what else we have for percussion. Now this I'm gonna move off to the other side just for balance sake. Again. All right, let's look at this bass. Bass definitely gonna have to get some treatment. Okay, so let's go. First thing we're gonna do is throw a bass amp on there, so it gets the benefit of that that amp head sound. Bass. Amps and pedals. Bass amp designer. It's a stereo file, so I'm going to choose a stereo bass amp designer. And off the bat, I think I know I want to go with I'm going to begin with a deep sound, but I'm going to add back some mid and treble. So this is direct amp, no cabinet yet. I may add a cabinet eventually. Let's hear what that does. Even before the bass amp, I'm gonna mess with a regular EQ. Let me bypass the bass amp first. So the bass, as I got it, really has nothing in the 60-50 frequency range, which is really where I want this bass to be. Is right now this bass is peaking at around 110, 150. I really wish it were down at 60. So let's see what we can do. One of the first things I may try here is So I'm moving the bass arm down, and first I'm gonna cut any nastiness down at 27 hertz. I don't need anything down there. Hold on, guys. Okay, and I'm seeing you asking if we can try distortion. Distortion may not help. Distortion usually adds a lot more higher frequencies than it adds lower frequencies. So what I'm actually going to add here is a plugin called, so far, is Logic Native. Wait, let's see if I can remember where sub bass is. It's is it down in utility? No, it's where is my sub bass? Reverb utility. It's not dynamics. It's not really dynamics. Let's check EQ. This is one feature that Studio One has that I wish Logic did. Studio One allows you to search for plugins. There's no plugin search in Logic as far as I know. No easy way to search. I wish that an update of Logic would include that. Imaging, ozone, studio, metering, BPM, loudness. Okay, Keon, I think I saw some hats come in via email there. I'll try to import them. Metering, modulation, multi-effects, pitch, repair, reverb, specialized. Sub bass, there it is. Sub bass. So what this plugin does, it listens to your signal and adds a harmonic an octave lower. So let's hear it. Okay, now that the giving the EQ something to grab onto. And now I'm gonna add the bass after that. So Kian, some of what you're suffering from here too is again the range of what you're playing on the bass is throwing you out of the illusion. So the lowest note on a 4 string bass is that E, right? And even if you want to go 5 string, that's the lowest note will be a B below that. Even on a 6 string, it's still that B because what they do, they add a higher string. So try not to go below those notes when you program bass because it tends to fall apart sonically. All right, some of those low notes you're playing, even though the EQ frequency is very high MIDI, the pitch data is low and out of a real bass guitar's range. So it throws off the illusion. So even so that's an important thing. Even though the keys on a keyboard allows you to do it, you got to remember that when you're programming bass, you're not playing a keyboard. You're literally playing. You need to play for the instrument that you're trying to emulate. So when I play, if I were to play guitar, check this out. See, that's a guitar sound. If I were to play that sound down here, or even let's see, if I were to do this, doesn't sound like a guitar anymore because it's out of the natural range of a guitar. But if I were to play those very same notes within the range of a real guitar, even that is a bit low because the lowest note on a real guitar is that E string. So when I play, I try not to go below that E unless you're doing some fancy drop tune and you're playing metal or something. But regular, a standard tuned guitar, that's your lowest note. So I would have to play. So that's what's going on with your bass there. Right now, some of your bass notes are below the range of a real bass. And I know why you did that. The EQ of the bass was so high that you wanted weight, so you played lower. But that was the wrong way to go about it. The right way would have been to fix the EQ sound of that bass before you started laying it down. Right? Yeah, I tell lots of producers, these days you gotta produce like an engineer and you gotta mix like a producer. That's the way the technologies have uh, given us the ability to do these things. We need to be aware. I mean, long ago when you couldn't do those things, it was impossible to make that mistake because a real bass player would come with a bass and play, and he couldn't play notes that were out of his range. But now that you have the technology is important to realize that these things can happen and avoid them. Oh, you're asking which E? So the lowest E on a guitar is the E below middle C. The E below middle C, right? That's on a guitar. On a bass, it would be the octave below that, right? Now, that's a ticklish thing too because different manufacturers center their samples in different places on the keyboard. So you really gotta use your ears. You really gotta listen to what a real bass sounds like and see where that sample is centered on the keys. So you gotta know by ear that that is too low for a guitar, right? You gotta know that that don't make sense on a guitar. But that there is the lowest note, right? So it takes a little bit of experience. It takes a little bit of listening to the real instrument and figuring and understanding what and how the mechanics and of how it works, right? That's the best advice. Kind of listen to the real instrument and really try to emulate what those guys doing on the real things as much as possible. Oh, Kevin, I see you here. And Rodney, good vibes. Good vibes. All right. So yeah, so I listening to this bass you have here, Keon. Let me mess with it a little bit. So I'm gonna turn off all the plugins that I have, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. Right. So that's the bass as I got it. Not a bad bass sound. Is a little high MIDI. And because it's so high MIDI, it makes you want to physically play lower notes. All right. I'm gonna tune on some of the plugins here to see how. See. So my advice is to try programming when you writing the bass lines. Try to put these plugins on to make the bass sound like a bass before you even start to play a note, and that will give you the right sonic cues. That will give your ears the right sonic cues as to which notes to play. All right, let me just go download those hats real quick. I know you sent them via email. Let me grab my email. New. Just copying the hats and I'll drag it into the session now. So this is my drums. Okay, so let's go. I just pulled in the new hats, and I'm just gonna do that initial gain, that region gain to -23. Functions. Normalize read and gain for loudness. Go. All right, so these are our hats. Let's Let's put them in the drum mix. Scroll. Okay, the drum bus is muted. Not bad. Okay, so here's another similar range issue we having on the piano here. Now, a piano does have 88 keys, and uh, it allows you to play any of those keys anytime, right? So it's a slightly different issue to the bass, but check this out. D minor, right? I'm right now. Let me move one of these cameras so you can see what my hands are doing. Okay, let's see. Okay. So that's a D minor triad right above middle C, right? Now that sound has a certain cloudiness about it. Cloudiness, you say. Let me explain further. The higher up the keyboard you get, okay, what's the best way to explain this? The higher up the keyboard you get, the further away notes are from each other mathematically. I wonder if that makes sense. Okay, let's do it from a purely mathematical standpoint. This A note below middle C, to make something an A note, that speaker in my studio is vibrating at 440 hertz, right? 440 cycles per second, right? So A, is it below or above? I think it's below. So A below middle C is 440 hertz. If you were to play the A above that, an octave above that, to get an octave above that, what actually happens is the frequencies double. So it's now, that is 880 hertz, right? And an A below the original when I played, would be 220 hertz, right? So now if you the A below that would be half of 220, would be 110 hertz, right? Now if you plot those things out on a graph, you would notice that the distance between 110 and 220 is smaller than the distance between 220 and 440. And the distance between 440 and 880 is much larger than the distance between 220 and 440, right? So the even though the notes have the same letter name and the same physical distance as you move up the keyboard, if you check out the frequencies that make those notes, the lower down the piano you are, or the lower down anything, the bass you are, or any instrument, the lower down you are, the closer those frequencies are together. Now, when frequencies are close together, they tend to rub against each other and sound muddy. So if I play D minor in root in that triad position all the way up here, it doesn't rub, it doesn't feel muddy. And the reason for that is because each note is vibrating at a frequency that is far from its neighbor. Even though the notes are physically close together on the keyboard, they're vibrating at frequencies that are far from each other. Not so if I did that same... See how muddy and ugly that sounds? Because they rub at frequencies that are very close to each other. Now, as you play the piano, or any instrument for that matter, when you're doing your pan arrangements and so, you would realize that by spreading voicings out on the left side and making clusters on the right side gives you the best results. You can choose where you want things to rub and where you want things to not rub. So if I were to play that D minor and I wanted it to feel nice, I would play a small cluster on the right side, but maybe a 151 on the left side, and spread those voicings out on the left side, because to let those frequencies not rub. See, that sounds much better than... You can feel how those rub, right? Right? And even though that's the same physical pattern, DFA, as this sounds a lot more clear and it doesn't rub as much, and it's simply because the frequencies are further apart on the logarithmic frequency scale, right? So all that is to say, when you're creating your harmony parts, you gotta pay attention to the range and the voicing. So if I want to make a D minor triad, and I wanted to, I could voice it close together, high up, or could voice it far apart, low down, which would be. Even that feels a little rubby because I could do that feels better. Or, right? So spreading things out on the left side and clusters on your right side. That's one of your fundamental techniques of voicing, regardless of what instrument or what quartet or what ensemble, whatever you're doing. That's a fundamental concept that you got to stick to. So what made me bring that up is listening to this piano part. Let me solo it here a little bit. So you see, all your notes are right, but the voicing gets a little muddy as it gets down into and a little clustered and muddy as it gets low down in the low mids of the piano there. So I'd advise you to revoice that piano part because it's only gonna fight you in the mix now. That's only gonna be, regardless of what you do with that piano part, it's gonna be muddy in the mix because of that clustery sound that it brings. Right? It's gonna bring that clustery sound low down. You're better off with a with a more open sound. Those sounds that will mix better. Right? I hear that. I see. Yeah, I see you saying. Yeah, that was the beginning of the vibe. Yeah, some don't feel shy to rework things as you move along. Even for producing for years, even up to now, I still just had to delete things and rethink things and start over productions and nothing wrong. There's no shame, nothing wrong with that, right? That's as things progress, you remember things must work together vertically as well as horizontally in your productions, right? So if something as you progress begins to work less well, don't feel shy to change it or to get rid of it or to start somewhere else or to approach it differently, right? This is fine, right? Okay, so here we go. Let's listen to that piano part one more time. Yeah, so as I try to incorporate that piano, you'll realize that it because of its voicing, it's a little muddy. It's hard to fix. Yeah, that piano part should be more like that, right? It should be more all the way. All right. Yep. So So I'm gonna show you a little love there. I'll mute your piano track and I'll play one. All right. Ah, yeah. Yeah, there's a little montage I have there, Kevin. All right. So let me yeah, folks keep asking me how to incorporate that montage into uh into a session. So I know I explained it once before, but I'll go through it again. Since we're gonna redo the piano on this track, let's let me walk you guys through the process of incorporating your montage. Well, first off, you must download and install your Yamaha MIDI driver, right? Install that Yamaha MIDI driver, whatever software you're using, Pro Tools, Studio One, Ableton, Logic, anything, they all would require the Yamaha MIDI driver, USB MIDI driver, right? Install that, and once you've installed that, Logic will see the montage once you plug it in. That said, the montage is a weird beast. It's a different type of synth from your regular motif or your anything else. It's a strange one in that it uses multiple MIDI channels for one patch or one performance is what it's called on the montage, a performance, and that brings certain peculiarities, I should say, with the montage. You know what? I think I'll do the montage as a separate video entirely. So let me go with a regular motif for now and let you guys see what the process is for a regular motif. The motif is different to the montage in that on a motif, every sound lives on a MIDI channel by itself. So channel 1 could be piano, channel 2 could be guitar, channel 3 could be bass, channel 4 could be organ, and so on. Just like every other synth before it. Montage is different. So a montage could have a single piano spread across 5-6 MIDI channels, right? Which makes it a little complicated to deal with in the studio. So I'll make a whole separate video that just deals with the montage. But for now, let's use a motif piano. I have a motif rack here, and so let me create track, new external MIDI track. So just like the montage, you need to download your USB MIDI driver for your motif. Any Yamaha keyboard for that matter. Download your Yamaha USB driver. Hook a USB cable up between the module and the laptop and the computer, and immediately Logic will see that device, that external device. Will be able to send MIDI data backward and forward. One of the things that makes my setup a little unique is I have all the patch names and patch numbers of my motif living inside Logic and that's an environment configuration. Whoever has a motif and needs to get the what do you call it? The environment. Let me go to the window here. Windows environment. MIDI environment is what they're calling it now. If you want to get, let's go to the layer that's called keyboards. If you want to get your motif multi-instrument, this multi-instrument here has all the sounds associated with the motif, all the patch numbers and so with the sound names. What's the benefit of that? It lets you, let's say you're working on a song all day and you find a real nice Rhodes and a real nice set of strings and a real nice piano. It lets you save those patches with the session. So the next time you bring up the session, Logic is able to tell the motif rack which patches on which channels to go to recall, and it will recall the patches, the fader volumes for those MIDI fader volumes, and reverb and chorus sends. It will remember all those things for you. So that's the benefit of having a multi-instrument with labels for your motif. Okay, so yes, Kevin, ModiX works the same way too. The ModiX is different. Both the montage and the ModiX is different, and I'll be doing a separate video just for those two keyboards because they're very strange, but once you get the hang of it, they're very powerful. Alright? So yeah, so for now we're gonna do this motif ES. That should be the same for the XS and the XF, right? So here we go. So I'm going to the library here, and I'm going to choose my motif ES, which is that multi-instrument from the environment page. I'm going to choose channel 1. So this now becomes channel 1 of that motif. And so this now, I got to turn local control off of the montage, so the keys no longer send sound to the internal tone generator. Right, so my keys are now dead, and I can tell that they're sending signal to the, I don't know if you guys can see well enough, but I have lights flashing on my motif rack there. So it's receiving MIDI, but MIDI is only half the battle. Remember, you got to hear this thing somewhere as well. So what you have to do, you also have to create a new audio track. Make sure it's stereo. And then you tell that audio track, but in my studio, the outputs of my motif rack come in on input 17 and 18. I have a fancy sound card set up here with 30-something inputs. So I've normaled on the patch bay the output of the motif to come up on input 17 and 18. All right. So once that's set up on an audio track whose input is 17 and 18, and it's set to input monitoring. Once I play, that's now the sound. Notice I have the MIDI highlighted, but to hear the sound, it has to be, the output sound has to be routed to an input and be an input monitoring. All right. So let me label this is like the return, right? This is how the audio returns into Logic. It's just for us to hear it, and eventually when we satisfy with the MIDI, we literally record it to this track as well. So I'll call this track New Piano. All right. Okay. The song is in D minor. I'm just gonna mess with that. And I'm not gonna record or anything. I'm just gonna jam the song down. Now, what I'm gonna do, I wanna know where verse and chorus and all these things are. So I'm just gonna turn the lead pan on real quick. I know I haven't gotten there any mixes yet, but I don't want to overplay in the verses, and I don't want to underplay in the choruses. right? I need to follow the dynamics of the song. So for that, I want to listen to the lead, right? Take note, guys. Anytime you playing an accompanying part, make sure the lead of what your accompaniment is on, because you never want to trample that with your accompaniment. Oh, that's not the lead I was talking about. That's a lead synth. What I'm really looking for is the so this is pan chords, brass, rhythm guitar. I'm looking for the main pan here. Let's see what this is. Yep, this sounds like it. Right. So now I know I want a piano. Let me just make sure that let me show you. I didn't show you guys where the patch names and things are, right? Let me show you where the patch names and things are on this motif. On your second triangle here, you see it's saying full grand right here. This is the whole patch list for all the sounds in the motif. Notice I could go through the sounds right here. Vintage phase. Those you guys who know the ES will know these sounds, right? Noisy bell. And this is me changing the patches on channel 1 of that motif ES right from within Logic. Alright, what I know I want the full grand, so I know that it's the first one all the way up here. Good. So now every time I bring this session up, it will automatically tell that motif ES to bring up this piano at that volume on MIDI channel 1. You know what? I want to open something else that plays chords so that I am not clashing with. So I've seen something here called pan chords. I'm going to open that as well, real low in the background so I don't clash with them. So from that, I'm actually getting some new chords. Yeah, man, they're all relative, so they'll work together. Okay, so let's listen from the top. Okay, so that's where I'll start from. Look, I seen the man who produced this song here saying I should open the strings. Just let me open that just in case there's nothing there to clash. Yeah, makes sense. I'll open that. Sure. Right now, this piano that I'm playing is a little loud too. I want to make sure that it's inside the other stuff, so I can hear the other stuff while I play. Because I don't wanna overshadow things and then after the fact realize that I am playing a harmony that they're not playing, or so I want to be in the mix while I track. So here we go. So I think I let the other instruments play a cycle, and I'll come in kind of later. Okay, so the chords did some things there that I wasn't anticipating. Let me go have a listen to that section again and just make sure. Okay, so from measure 141, right? From measure 141. We want to get rid of everything after 141. Save. Play. So it's basically the same harmony, but just the bass almost taking a solo. Alright, so which means I gotta play less busy, and I gotta imply the chord tones a little less too. Where am I? Yeah, so let me learn that there. So okay, that's an interesting passage there, Mr. Kian. Yeah, so the bass playing from F and the pan playing from C. Yeah, I can mess with that like that. Yeah, Rain is actually it actually is the same scale. Both of them playing the notes of D minor, because we in D minor. So they're playing the F major scale. That's with the B flat there. So F, G, A, B flat, C. But the even though we're in a D minor chord, the bass starts from F and the pan starts from C, which does a strange. Boy, my boy get baptized there, not just church. But let me see it. I think I can make a. that's from 145, right? So let me see how we get into. Okay, so almost. He keeps going up, huh? You know what? Let me play that first, and then I'll fill in. I'll rewind and fill in the back half. Sorry. Okay, one more time. Nice. Yeah, that works. I could play it better. But I know what's going on, so I could play that better. Alright, so now that I have that, let's see how we fill in the bar before. The 4 bars before. So he did something different there too. He did, which is what all I'm gonna. It's so busy that I'm not gonna play much. And here he kind of turning out. Let's go for that. One more time. Nice. I think that's all the piano it needs. So next step is I just gotta look at that piano and see all the crap I played now and try to do some edits. So that's the beauty of recording as MIDI. Now that I've recorded as MIDI, notice I have no quantize. Everything is nice and loose and out of time the way I played it. Now I'll go through and choose what I want to quantize. So here we go. Even these da 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 da. I just want them to be a little tighter. Da 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 da. Alright, bam, bam, bam. Going to the chorus, going to the verse, sorry. And make that a little more. Okay, one little note here. This note is early. Hit the quantize on that. Nice. Okay, so I like that piano take. I fixed all the errors as we were playing, and now I'm ready to print. So when you're ready to print, this is what you do. Right now, the monitor track is in input mode. So instead of input mode, I'm going to say actual record mode. So turn off input monitoring, turn on record mode, go to the start of the track there and hit play and record. Okay, I just want to record a hair hotter than that. So I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna push the MIDI volume up some. I'm just gonna track it hot. Well, hotter. Nice. Okay. All right. So let's turn this off. So we now have a new piano. We now have a new piano track. And you know what? We've been on for a while, guys. I think there's a lot of information for one night. I think I'll continue this mix tomorrow. Okay, so far we've placed the drums, percussion in. We've placed the bass in. I've fixed somewhat the sound of the bass. I'm not 100% there with it yet, and we've replaced the piano. So I'll be removing the original piano part, and these will be on new pianos. I'll mute the MIDI because we now have it as an audio file, and I'll hit save, and we'll call it a night. I'll continue this mix tomorrow night at around 8 p.m. Those of you who want to continue following, and yeah, we if you want again, thanks for watching. And if you guys want to ask questions as we go along, feel free to ask. I'll answer as best as I can. And those of you guys who have projects that sitting on your hard drive and you need to finish them, I'll help you finish your projects. Just contact me at my number or my email. You can see it at the bottom of your screen. And yeah, contact me and we'll work something out. All right, I promise I wouldn't be too expensive. All right, guys. So have a good night. I'll continue with this tomorrow at 8 p.m. Thank you for watching. See ya.